My name is Nick Urbom. I'm the founder and CEO of Infinity Festival, which is a festival that celebrates story advanced by technology, and it's where Hollywood and Silicon Valley are coming together in the city of Los Angeles. I basically got into events about 10 years ago. I originally went to school for music and made my living as a drummer and a percussionist, which was a lot of fun and kind of had a life change over some health issues at one point that led me to moving out to Los Angeles 15 years ago, finding my way into the events industry. I actually networked through some of the gay and lesbian organizations in Los Angeles that I was involved with and met some people in the events industry. Met a gentleman who used to be president of the Primetime Emmys, and he was looking at launching an organization that would celebrate basically what was going on around 3D filmmaking at that time. And so Jeffrey Katzenberg at DreamWorks and executives at Disney were going all in on digital cinema and where that was going, and making sure that people were aware of the fact that if they wanted to see this amazing new film that was coming out from James Cameron called Avatar, and a whole lot of other cool stuff that was coming down the pike, then they needed to know about stereoscopic 3D. And so we ended up forming a trade association that had a lot of the major studios on board and a lot of their technology partners, the Dolby, Deluxes, Technicolors of the world. And we went to USC and we developed a professional education course that would go through the entire pipeline of content creation. And so we would travel around with these little professional conferences and an awards show that we developed to recognize the best of the best content. And we ended up forming chapters in China, Japan, Korea, Canada, Europe, and the UK, in addition to here in Hollywood. And so we had amazing people involved over the years like Martin Scorsese and Ang Lee and Jim Cameron. So just really phenomenal people talking about how they saw new opportunities to share an experience with an audience where you could engage with different levels of empathy and just stimulation in ways that people maybe hadn't thought about. What we found was that with the newer tech, there were ways to engage more empathetically. For instance, the fact that you could put someone in someone else's shoes and really create an experience where instead of just passively watching something and being entertained, you were actually stepping into somebody else's world for the way that your body interprets that emotionally. And so that was cool. That kind of got us into the world of virtual reality. And that we got asked by Sotheby's auction house on the Upper East Side to produce an event around what was going on with immersive content with the art and museums crowd. And so we took over 3 floors of Sotheby's auction house and opened an event to the public where you could come in and literally walk in and out of a Van Gogh painting. You could see an exhibition that would transition from masks on a wall that started with sketches and drawings, transitioned to physical 3-dimensional masks, and then went into an electronic space where you put on an immersive headset, and all of a sudden you could engage with these masks that would turn into bodies and experiences that you were interacting with. And really connecting that story of how people have gone from visualize something to creating something physical to now engaging with something in all these different ways that weren't possible until the last few years due to all of the tech. So we were talking with all of our sponsors, all of our clients and partners, and saying, you know how there's all this technology that's coming out of Silicon Valley on a daily basis that's changing the way that we're telling stories? And you know how Hollywood is the world's leader in telling stories? And why are we getting on planes necessarily to go to other places to talk about this when it's happening right here in our backyard in Los Angeles? And maybe it's time to bring these two titan industries together and right here in Los Angeles have an event that's celebrating story advanced by technology. So that's what launched the festival. That was a fun event. We had a couple thousand people in for an event that started off at United Talent Agency in partnership with the Consumer Electronics Show. We had over 100 screenings of different types of content and everything from film, TV, to social media, to immersive, to interactive, to gaming. We had over 200 speakers. We work with one of the governors from the Television Academy, Lori H. Schwartz, who is a major leader in the tech space. And so she programmed tracks with film, TV. We had NASA there. We had Mount Sinai talking about how they're using virtual reality in the operating room during brain surgeries, which was mind-blowing. And so all these cool presentations on how people are telling stories with tech right now. We had over 30 tech exhibitions from folks like Intel from the 3rd floor who helped make all the movies that you see on the big screen today. We had HTC Vive there from the immersive space. We also did a tech lab with Epic Games, the makers of Fortnite. And they were talking about how their new technology with Game Engine is being used to no longer just do level design in video games, but now it's being used to actually make movies. It's being used to tell all kinds of stories. I just came back from UT Austin, where Epic was doing a workshop with how you can use a Game Engine to tell a story in all these different spaces now, advertising, film, TV, you name it. So that was a cool experience that we did at our event. We live streamed that out with Ridley Scott Creative Group to over 45,000 people online so that they could learn more about how Game Engine is being used. And we also launched our student lab in partnership with UT Austin, also USC, Chapman University, and others were involved, showcasing some of the coolest stuff that students are doing. And I will say, from our experience with the events that we've done, we find that in the business of major studios and major technology companies, you get into a lot of systems for how people develop new products, they develop new content, and they push it out into the market in a way that comes from a lot of experience. With students, there's a lot of unwritten rules. People are looking at blank canvases. They come in with entirely new ideas. And we found that some of the coolest stuff that's being showcased at our events is actually from students. It's just really cool experiences where people are working in immersive, they're working in Game Engine, they're working with the newest tech, and they're doing things that they're not asking for permission from anyone to do anything. They're really breaking boundaries in cool new ways that are inspiring the professionals at the studios and the tech companies, which is kind of a cool byproduct of our events. If a humble student from Topeka, Kansas can come and accomplish these things in Los Angeles, so can you. In all honesty, I have been so fortunate. Every step of the way, what I have done is, like I said, I went to music school. So I did not expect to be working in Hollywood. I did not expect to be working in Silicon Valley. I just had really great teachers and mentors every step of the way where I knew what my passion was, and my passion was simply to make music. So my teachers always taught me to be an eternal student. So I was always seeking out new opportunities to learn. And so when I was doing music, that was through listening to other amazing musicians. It was going to performances. It was performing myself and putting myself out there and learning through all those experiences. My life transitioned through a health situation. I had mono at one point, and so I literally had to sub out all of my work because a doctor said, you need to sleep. And I was just like, what is sleep? Just go, go, go. So I had to sleep. And so I took a temp job actually just to pay my rent while I was trying to figure out how to deal with my health. And when I took that temp job, I was seated in front of a computer where they said, you're going to work in Photoshop. You're a young person. You can figure this thing out. We'll tell you what you need to do. I was like, okay, I know how to use a computer. And so I literally started learning Photoshop on the fly, doing very simple tasks, honestly. But nonetheless, it really started engaging me in more of a visual format. And so I literally put on headphones every day once I figured out what I was doing. And I started taking books from the library on graphic design. And I started talking to friends who were designers. And I started then doing artwork for friends for their CDs and posters for shows they were doing just because I could, not because I was a great artist, but I could just execute it and say, here's the band name and the date and the location, the time. So that led me to a place where I ended up taking another job just by chance at some point. I literally looked for work on Craigslist, public forums, et cetera, when I moved to Los Angeles, and I got into events. And I liked events. I liked working with people. I liked seeing a date and a time turn into an experience. That was pretty cool. And so there were all of a sudden when I learned that you could incorporate visuals into that, and you could incorporate graphics, and you could incorporate a PA and have a band playing or have audio, or just change the way people showed up and experienced a moment in time, to me was phenomenal. And so once I learned more and started meeting more people and learning that there's a whole industry around events, it kind of piqued my curiosity and got me more into that world where that's turned into the last 10, 15 years of my life now. I think that people used to go to events and say, I'm going to go sit in a seat and I'm going to learn. And what we have found is that that is no longer true. People, they want to engage. If there's people speaking, they want to meet those speakers. If someone's showing off a filmmaking technique, they want to talk to the people that are the filmmakers that are demonstrating that technique. They want to learn from them right there. Do they have a podcast right now? Do they have videos on YouTube? Where else can I go to learn what that person is doing right now and learn their whole story as fast as I can so that I can try and connect with them? So our events, we found that if we are in unique spaces, that allows people to just bump into each other, and the entire event is immersive. So we work with Facebook's live event production company, a company called F&Tech. And we met these folks a few years ago, and we found that if we can do something right when people enter, they can be immersed in our event right away. So even just taking visuals, like if you go to an event, you'll see screens, you'll see LED panels, you'll see posters, you'll see all these kinds of things at events typically. So what we said was, when we walk in the front door, is there something we can do at Sotheby's auction house, for instance, that immediately changes the way that people feel, where they're not just walking into a building, they're walking into an experience. And so what we did was we found that with them, we could bend these LED panels just by about 2 degrees, very little, because it's tech, and they're rigid structures, but they could bend them just a little bit. So we put a lot of them together and we made a wavy wall. And then we worked with some of our friends who are creative geniuses and put together really compelling content. And we made it so that when you walked in, it was like you're floating through this cool wavy experience just to get to the check-in desk. And so immediately you're inspired right when you're there. And so your mind is in this place now where you're thinking, I don't know what's going on here, but it's special. And I want to connect with the people that are here because I'm just seeing one cool thing after the next. So we try and just in terms of how we lay out the event, we try and do stuff where you do have the opportunity for professional learning. You're hearing from the best of the best. You're going to hear from Vicki Dobbs-Beck, who's the executive in charge at ILM X Lab, talking about what they're doing on the new Star Wars experience. But you're also going to have the chance to potentially bump into her out in the hallway because it's not going to be in such a grand space that you can't meet the people at our events. It's all highly engaged and interactive. What we've found works the best with us, I should say, is that students who are inquisitive and they want to know more, they want to know how we do what we do, they want to know more about these industries, and they're actively looking into this themselves. They're just looking at the blogs, the industry trades. They're online trying to figure out what's going on in Hollywood, what's going on in Silicon Valley, how new tech is being used in new ways, and how game engine is being used to tell a story. They're just naturally inquisitive and looking into these things and saying, hey, I saw this, should we be talking about this? Or are we connected with them? Can I meet some? Like people who are just inquisitive and constantly curious and looking to learn. We feel like we can be helpful to students by saying, if you're curious about these things, you might want to be looking this way, or you might want to pay attention to so-and-so, or did you know this already exists? Or this person's already gone down the path you're trying to go down. So we can actually be stewards to those students to get where they want to go. We feel like, we're not necessarily, we don't have it all figured out ourselves, but we've learned a lot. And so we feel like if we can help a student get where they want to go faster, cool. That's an inspiring story for us. Yeah. So in terms of how do we stay relevant, we attend other events. We pay attention to what other people are doing. We go to Facebook's F8 conference and hear Mark Zuckerberg speak. We go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and we pay attention to how people are exhibiting at those shows. And the thing that Mark and I have done with Infinity Festival that we've always just resonated with very intimately is the fact that we say, do we want to be here? So if we're at our own event and we say, is there somewhere else I would rather be? That's a problem. We want to create that experience where it's very competitive in Los Angeles. It's very competitive in larger cities around the globe in terms of what people are going to do with their time and their interest. But if we can do something where someone says, I don't know how I ended up here, or maybe I do know how I ended up here, but boy, I'm glad I did, because I really wouldn't want to be anywhere else for the next 5 minutes or the next 5 hours or whatever it's going to be. That's what we want from our events, where we feel like, knowing that we've been to some cool places and seen some cool things, do we want to be at this thing that we're creating right now? And how can we create something that other people don't want to leave? They feel inspired, and they feel like they're meeting the people that they want to meet. People that attend our events are at the forefront of everything tech related and story related. So they are paying attention. They're the ones that are putting new products out into the marketplace. They are the Apples, the Facebooks, the Googles of the world, you name it, Disney, Sony, etc. So for us, it is about just keeping communication going with people in terms of saying, have you guys heard about this? Have you seen this? We saw this at an event. Have you seen this? And keeping that dialogue going for us to stay relevant. The stuff that students might want to pay attention to in that regards, like I said, is simply just paying attention to the industry news and not assuming that there's going to be some source out there that spoon feeds information to people. You need to be curious on your own and go out there and engage with the world and figure out which sources of information you look to find out about the newest tech that's being used in movies, for instance. It's not hard if you just Google a lot of this stuff to find out what's being used and how people are using it. It's just about being curious and taking that action proactively for yourself to go out there and look. You'll find there's a lot of information online. And if you're interested in something, then there's always ways to connect with people and learn more. I think that if we have had valuable experiences in terms of the people that we've met, the experiences we've had in life, we want to be able to share that. And there are other people who are inspired in different ways where they want to create a story that no one has ever experienced before. And that's where you find a Steven Spielberg. That's where you find a James Cameron. These people who really say, imagine if people could experience this story. And they're using every version of the latest technology known to be able to do that. Those are the people that we get inspired by.
I just have you sit straight up with this one if they're going to do the punches.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Yes. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Oh, he got bigger.
Yeah, you got bigger.
Oh, yeah, there he goes.
I had to do that the whole time, but it was a nice casual conversation. So.